everybody. This is episode 321, and I am excited to have my friend Dimi on. But before we get started, I'm going to give you the commercials. So I just want you to know about Recharging You. It's not only the home for the Design Recharge Show, it's also a place where we inspire, we motivate, we guide creatives through courses and coaching and one-on-ones and workshops and things like that. So I just wanted you to know there's more to it than just the podcast, but the podcast is a big part. That's definitely where it started. It helps freelancing creatives find and utilize their strengths and guide you into reaching your business goals and your creative goals. Because sometimes they're separate and sometimes we have to get one out of the way so that we can start on the other. I want to help you do that. Just so you know, very end of November, we will be opening back up the Power Station. It is open. It's going to be open for 2 weeks. It is a group of people that are amazing. You meet every week. It's a 12-week commitment, and we do it over about 13 weeks. So we might take 1 week off in that time. So it's going to start on January 2nd. So if you are ready to start the new year off right, this is the thing for you. So if you are interested, you can check it out. If you go to rechargingyou.com/power station, you'll be able to find out more. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm happy to have you live. And last week I forgot to hit record or broadcast. I'm so sorry. I ended up doing it super late because I thought nobody loved me and nobody showed up. It was terrible. But then Michael stayed. Michael Fonville, he was here for the whole 30 minutes just waiting on me. I appreciate it, Michael. All right. So today we have my good friend, Dimi Lazarou. That probably was a not great of an intro, but I'm excited to have Dimi on. Dimi is in a group with me, and Dimi and I got to talking. I don't know. He said something, and it made me just want to reach out to him, and we started talking. Hey, Mario. So I don't even know what it was, but Dimi is bold. He is also one of the sweetest people I know. He's very good at holding you accountable. For me, he holds me accountable different than anybody else in my life. He does it in such a it's like a hard way, but it's very soft. I don't know a way to say it. I said you hold me accountable in a way that is very unique than anybody else. So I want to do what you want me to do, but I also don't ever feel judged by you. Like I feel loved no matter what. So I appreciate that. So we're going to get started. Brian White's here too. We got people from all over the country: Hawaii, Kansas, Alabama, Texas. We got Karina's in Tel Aviv. I appreciate you guys coming from all over. So Dimi is in the UK, he lives in London, but you're from Greece originally.
Indeed.
Okay. And so Dimi has a unique story about how he's got a really amazing set of Instagram. It's different than other people's, so I'm excited for you guys to check it out. I'll put it in the chat. But one of the things that Dimi does is he was not always super organized, and his time was not controllable or controlled. It was very out of control, right?
I was pretty much the most disorganized person I knew, that's for sure. And it's really weird because there used to be a time when I had a photo of my flat when I was in uni, and it was a whole mess. But I've lost the photo in because I was disorganized, so I lost the photo as well. It was one of these times where, you know, everything was that's how I thought that, you know, you're supposed to be when you're in uni or whatever, when you're a creative person. Like, oh, I'm creative, so I must be very disorganized. And I had this chaos system where it was a time when the internet was, you know, still growing. Lots of times, you know, you'd write things down, like noting things on paper was really common, no touch screens yet. And so I would have these stacks of notes, and I would just find whatever I wanted just from an average height of the pile. that it would be, and it's sort of like, oh, this is 2 weeks ago, so it's probably halfway down the pile or something like that.
Because you
I'm
were
so
always an avid
embarrassed.
note taker, though, right? You would take notes. It was just you weren't able to actually access them.
Well, the thing is, like, notes is a really weird thing. Like, I sort of like, this is some of my notes. So I write and I doodle, and nothing is organized here. That's for sure. I'm a very I'm not sure. Like, ADHD wasn't a thing when I was growing up, so perhaps I am, and I never been formally diagnosed. But I have this, really hard attention span, and like, my attention span is really hard to control. So sometimes making doodles or writing specific things or random words, like, I don't know, sandwich, might be, just, this is what comes to mind right now. Just, I'm trying to get it out of me, so my brain still has capacity to think on the things that I'm actually working on. So it was super weird. Like, again, if I wasn't 32 and so out of this, I would be very embarrassed. But now it's just, I take it as a lesson to be learned, sort of thing.
But now it becomes like a superpower that now you can teach and you can help other people, because that's how you were with me. You had already come up with some tools. You're going to share some of those with us now. So I want to give you a little bit. You are working as a designer and an entrepreneur for how long? How long have you been on your own?
So I have been working as a designer for about 8 years now, and I have been running my own business for a year and a half, a little more than that, like 20 months or something like that. Yeah, on May, it will be 2 years. So yeah, I'm doing branding and identity design mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I take other production work for existing clients, but I don't do that so much.
And you used to do work with WordPress. I mean, you have a variety of a background, right? You have a math degree.
I don't have degree. I have studies. I
You
never
have,
got my degree, actually. No, I
okay.
flunked.
So lots of math though. So usually
Right.
that's not hand in hand with design. So you think differently. And so that's one of the things that I love. But you also come at a problem, whether it's within yourself or for a client, you're fine coming at it from different places, like coming at it from different sides. So the time thing, because it was so not how you were as a person, there was a one thing that you've told me that in your background that you did, you joined the
military service. Yeah, this
yes.
is probably what you're referring to. So yeah, in Greece, I'm Greek. I just came to the UK 4 years ago, so all of my upbringing and everything has been Greek educational system and all that. And there's a mandatory military service there, and for people, so it's a random allocation, but almost 90% of people go to the army, which was where I
Even
was.
girls?
No, so only males between the age of 18 and 35, you have to do it. You find a way to postpone it. So you're allowed to take time off if you're studying, and it's 1 year or 9 months if you're in the army.
You only have
Uh,
to give them a year?
yes. So
Oh.
if you're in the Navy and the Air Force, it's a year. If you're in the Army, it's 9 months, which is, well, it's just enough so that you don't get too senior in there, I suppose. Well, it was more. My dad did 3 years. Um,
Could you have done more? Like people do choose to go and that's their
so I could
career?
decide. I could decide to become an officer, and that would be 5 more months. And but I didn't want to. Like, I wanted to be, in and out as much as possible. So we have this thing called the presidential guard, that you have to be a certain height and above to go in. They asked me to go. I didn't want to, because it's terrible, terribly hard. You sort of have to stand still, not laugh, do all the, you've seen the bear skins in the UK. It's something similar. So that would be torture.
how tall are you? Because I know you're tall.
Oh God, you're all Americans. So in feet, I don't know how
We're not
tall I
all
am in feet.
Americans.
Okay, so I'm a
How
meter and
much taller than Chris are you?
much,
Like,
just
like,
head. Yeah,
like a,
more than a head.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say much more than a head, but I'm a head taller. That's for
You
sure.
tell me what it is and I'll do the conversion in,
So it's a meter and 83. Um, that's the
okay, I
less.
got it. You keep telling us about, the Army, and then what was that like? And how did that change you for time? Because this was really like a wake up call for you.
So the first thing that it was 273 days. I remember most of them. The main thing that started happening was I started waking up really early after a sort of, very intense social life that I had outside. And now my day started, like, especially in the first month and a half, the day started at 5:30 in the morning. And during the rest of it, like 6.
So
So,
what was a normal day before entering the Army? What time would you get up?
sometimes I would wake up. So when I was attending classes, it would be at around 8, and some days would be 11. I was especially the time when I was unemployed, it would be just random, like between 11, 12.
I guess what
Uh,
I'm trying to get across is there's this huge difference. So somebody who was really just um,
right.
uh, living by the whim, right, and
That's
not
absolutely true. Like
and not
I would stay out until 4, sometimes just, you know, stay awake all night until morning came. So it was a very different experience for me. So starting out at 5:30, like especially in the beginning, there was lots of training and stuff, and the main thing that happened there was that I started realizing that I've done so much and it's still 10 a.m. and that changed my perspective
so you were
so
getting up
much.
in the Army at like 5 or 6, and you were like at 10 a.m. Sometimes I'm not even awake, right?
Right. And then I was like, I've done so much, and I check my watch and it's just like 10, and you're like, oh my God, there's so much more in the day. And obviously in the Army, like, there's always work to be done, which is similar to running your own business. Like, someone will give you something to do, that's for sure. And when you run your business, this someone is yourself. You have a pile of things that you'll never get to until, like, there's no way you can achieve all these in a lifetime. But then it's just a challenge of finding what's to prioritize.
Okay, so that's another one of your strengths, is this ability to prioritize. So not only have you gone from crazy time, no time, I don't live by the clock, to living like, oh my goodness, I'm able to get so much stuff done. But I also think the ADHD kind of comes to play in here, because you'd always kind of been bing, 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 and taking notes and staying focused. And
Right.
I think that as designers, as creatives, we deal with this, no matter if we're ADHD or not, right? So you have a way to kind of deal with that by taking notes, taking a lot of notes on everything you're dealing with. But sometimes we may be really good at doing our time, but we might not be good at prioritizing. Like, there are times when a student asked me this, or somebody, a friend, I don't remember who asked me. I call them all friends, right? So somebody asked me and they said, well, how do you do this if you want to do project B, but you have to get project A? I mean, you have to do both of them. How do you reward yourself? And I think that this is something that you've been able to do. And I don't know how you were able to find this, but it kind of feels like you had a rebirth of when you were going. And I remember one of the first times we talked, Dimi, you said, you were like, this is not, I feel like I'm a taskmaster, right? Like, I just keep having things on my list,
Right.
right? And I was like, well, Dimi, maybe this is a superpower instead of like your Achilles heel, because maybe this is something you do really well. And then we started talking about that,
So the
right?
main thing is being so being able to prioritize and being wise at prioritizing is different. So I think this is where our relationship began, because you gave me so much clarity on what to prioritize, and which is the good step for me, and what am I missing from a picture. But when I see my list of like tasks for the day, like, it's for me, I'm very strict on myself on I'm very visual for the first thing. So when I struggle with something and I don't want to do it, I visualize what is this an obstacle for. So if I don't want to do the dishes, like, what are these dishes being dirty stopping me from doing? So when I visualize the thing that I need to achieve, then just the task becomes the wall between me and it. And this is what I suggest to everyone. Like, everyone's like, oh, I don't know how to do that, or I need to do that, but it's not happening. Like, if you want, and if it helps you visualize, the happy surprise that you have when you look at your bank statement and more money is in there than you expected, then that's something. So you have to visualize it and then just go, okay, now do this because it's client work. Or it's a little harder when it's something for you and it's not direct client work. Like, everyone struggles with that more, I think. And this is
because the other stuff is making us money, but this is one of the things that you're really good at, as you block off times in your week and times in your day to do learning. You also block off times. I want you to get to that. So where did you meet design? So in uni, did you study design?
So I studied mathematics, but I was very heavily involved. So before uni, I was very artistic. I would decorate my classmates' handbag, school bags, with calligraphy and markers and stuff like that. But at the time when I finished school in 2004, being a designer wasn't a very recommended thing. Not very inspiring path to follow. Everyone had to do science, so I did math, or maths as they call them here in the UK. And but when I was there, I was heavily involved in the student union. So in a desperate attempt to free up some money, we would usually before I went there, they would hire a designer to do posters for parties and social functions and stuff like that. But we wanted to save the 250 euros for a poster or something like that. So I was like, okay, what if I did that? So I started dabbling with it. I started buying magazines, books, all these sort of, resources. Like, the internet was just starting being a reliable resource. Like, YouTube wasn't a thing just yet, just had cat videos and all that, but no real intentional training thing. But books were really satisfactory. So I actually found a job while I was in uni in a print shop, and there we sort of did all these sort of calendars and promotional material and stuff like that.
So you were doing design outside of school, but you were doing it within the uni and then in your job. So you had this kind of side love that you didn't realize really could be a thing.
Precisely.
Right?
Yeah, I sort of I as my studies in mathematics were going and going, I sort of realized, like, I wasn't ever going to be the top mathematician, and I wasn't really, like, when I finished with the courses that I really enjoyed, like, the rest was sort of I'm not really sure, because you never know how it's going to be unless you're there. Like, in mathematics has nothing to do with the things we do in school, so nobody really could tell me that,
what you were going to do with math.
Well, yeah, I sort of like the thing that's has been outdated since the 1950s, and didn't know that because it was high school math. I didn't really know the certain intricacies of academia, I would say. But design, I found that I actually enjoyed studying. So after a while, like I was like, okay, I'm liking this too much. I need to start. I need to start being more and more consistent with this. So when I after I went to the army, I tried to find a job in design. I had some coding background because of mathematics, so I found a job as a developer with sort of designer's sensibilities, I would say, like without a degree or anything. So when I found this job, I took my first paycheck and enrolled in design uni, and I did evening courses and weekends, and from that I got my actual degree. So I was working and studying at the same time.
All right. So you're after the army, your life was different because you started getting up earlier, you were reading,
Right.
you were more um you had goals. And one of the things that you had said when we talked before was that um life had become, before the army, was an obstacle of your growth. And so this has kind of been like, if I think about you and your story, there are things that become this obstacle. And I think, for my friend Mark, who's in Bermuda, it could be that he does IT, but he's an amazing painter and illustrator, right? So, but it could be that there's this obstacle is of going into it full force, is that the other job pays well and it's consistent, right? So it's a lot, it's really it's scary, right, to go out. So there's all these things. So even you're talking about like unloading the dishwasher or doing the dishes if you don't have a dishwasher, right? So it's like an obstacle to getting to the next thing that you need to do, correct? So
Right.
when you started looking at life like this, where does priorities come in? Because I think for most creatives, this can be a very big struggle, is to know what to prioritize. And as you taught me how to do this, you said the first thing I needed to do was first just record what my life was like and how I spent time. And you told me about a certain tool, and I can't remember. I was going to pull it up, but
It's 144 blocks
okay.
is the one that I suggested, but even Google Calendar is great for that purpose. So
Well, right. And I showed you my 100. I showed you both. I showed
yeah,
you my Google Calendar, right? Because you were like, I think I
yeah,
can help you with this. And this is, I'm going to, 144 blocks is BLOCKS. I'm going to put it in the chat, and it'll also be down below for anybody. But this is a good way of really doing is it every 10 minutes? Every 10 minutes
yes.
of the day. Can you tell
So
about why you like this one?
so basically, the weird thing was when I when I realized that sometimes there was a there was this parallel with money that I find very inspiring. That time is like money. Budgeting helps a lot with understanding what you're doing. And the first advice I ever got from the budgeting software I was using was, in the first month, just track without judgment. And this is what I did for time. So I'm married. Sometimes we need to coordinate our lives with me and my wife. And one of the things that is challenging sometimes is what time is dinner time, for example. So you'll find these discrepancies between what I think how much time I think I spend on something, on prep, for example, or cooking or whatever, and what actual time I'm doing. So getting granular and understanding in a really precise level how much something actually takes. This helps me be honest with both myself, my wife, my clients, so that I don't overpromise and not deliver. Because
Okay.
I read this this very neat quote, I think from Seth Godin, that people, it's not a quote, but it's a story that people are late to meetings because they don't want to displease the previous person they're meeting with, and they think it will take 2 hours and takes 2 hours and a half, so they run to the next appointment. They're 10 minutes late and they've overestimated something. So I like pleasing people. I know that's a different curse of its own, but if I like pleasing people, this means that I have to be at least, accurate with the things I can do in a day.
All right. So pleasing is one of my things too. Maybe that's why we work well together. But so me tracking my time, and I think I did it for 3 weeks, and they do the 144 blocks. I was trying to find mine, but I guess I signed in with a different account. So I'm going to try to find it. But one of the things was that it literally was like your sleep, your work, your commute. You could also give like time for rest. And that was the thing for me that stood out to the most, because you said, well, Diana, if you know that it takes this, you work this much, but if you work over that, you start getting bitchy or something, right? Like you told me a story.
I wouldn't use that word with you, but that's a different.
That's a safe cuss word, I think. I don't usually cuss, but we'll say that's a safe one. But sometimes I can be like that, right? And just like you were saying, your friends and family, you said you also wanted to talk to them about when you start getting hard to live with, or when you start feeling overloaded, because it affects them also. And this was where priorities come in, and then you sticking to that amount of time. So can you kind of tell that story? Do you remember that story?
Well, I'm not sure what specifically you're referring to, but I think that, I'm a social person. I really like people. I have many friends. I have many good friends. I live away from home, which means that my time with my family is very very little, much less than I would like to. So I think that assigning time to be social and assigning time to be with yourself, like entertaining yourself, that's also really important in the long run. And I've been very guilty of working more than I should, or working less than I should. So in both situations, I find that being in the sort of Goldilocks zone of neither too much, neither too little is the best way possible. I think this is silly advice to listen from someone, like, don't overwork too much, like don't overwork yourself. But I have found a technique, and this is where the Google Calendar 166 blocks comes to play. I schedule my play in advance and my social time in advance. So I pre-book time for me to rest.
But why? Because this was, to me, and how you do it is the next thing. But one, it was because it made you more productive, right? When you were working.
Yeah, because my mind needs to rest. My mind needs to be taken off, off things. And the other is, again, I value the other people in my life enough that I want to be available to them as well, long term and short term.
All right, my favorite way to build websites is with the Elementor plugin, and it works with almost any WordPress theme. It makes any theme invincible. This plugin has changed the way I have been able to design websites. This plugin is the Elementor plugin, and it is a game changer. It's been a game changer for me. As I used to use one visual builder, now I use this one. When I go back to the old visual builder and I start reworking or working in clients' sites, I am completely fumbling around because Elementor has spoiled me, because it's so much easier. So, and it's easy to pick up. There's extra things that you can get. You can try the Elementor plugin for free, but then if you're ready to purchase, it doesn't cost you any more to use this link, but I just get a little piece of the pie. This is an affiliate link, and you can purchase the plan that's right for you. If you go to bit.ly/D R Elementor. things for me is that I showed you my Google Calendar and you were like, whoa, it's way too much, Diane. You have too much on my plate. And I don't know if anybody else is like that or not, right? I don't know. Oh, I have to do it at a different time. I can't share my screen because I had to upload the new Catalina or whatever. Anyway, but my calendar was overloaded, hour to hour, hour to hour. And exactly what you were saying was I felt bad saying I had to go. I only have an hour for this. I have to go. So how did you get over that part? Because I still kind of struggle with that. Do you tell people at the beginning how long you have? When you and I meet, you always say, hey, we have this thing at 10 or we have this thing at 4. I'm going to have to let you go. And we always have stayed to that, but you've always been very clear with me. Is that like from the get-go? Is that something that you would suggest for people like me?
Well, yes and no. Like I think that, so the main thing that I found in your calendar was that, lots of time was devoted to work and you didn't ever plan for time for yourself. And the worst thing is that there was no rest planned. So what happens is when you finish your work hours and there's nothing else on your calendar and you're tempted to stay working for 30 minutes more, an hour more, you're going to say, oh, I've nothing planned. I can still, work on this a couple of hours more and be done with it today, as if you're not going to put more work on yourself tomorrow. And the other thing is that this makes it tempting for you to use your own resources and your energy and vitality to and exhaust them before you can spend them on actual productive work. So
one thing you told me though, another thing that went with the blocks, it suggested that I get Legos, and you said, can you tell them about that?
Yeah. So what I do, and I encourage lots of people to do, is I have a schedule that's sort of approved by the people in my life as well. So there's buy-in from them as well. So that I have like 4 hours a day, I do paid work. 2 hours a day, I do sort of revenue tomorrow work, like either projects for free that build my portfolio, or helping people out, or doing networking. Like this right now would be like revenue tomorrow. You never know, but it's not social or
it's not
personal.
fun, right? Because we don't have fun together. I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
It's very fun. This is part of growing up. I think it's finding ways to enjoy your work life, but this is still work life. And so I do 4 hours a day of revenue today. I do 2 hours of revenue tomorrow, and then I have 4 hours of what I call exploration, which is reading, studying, writing, learning new stuff, exploring random things on Wikipedia that 3 years later they show up in your design work somehow. And then I have 2 hours of chores, which might be cooking, might be paying the bills, because sometimes these things take time. You have to wait for an email to respond.
Right.
And then I have 4 hours of entertainment or social life and 8 hours of sleep, and that's it.
So then you broke up these, you said, get these different colors. You need to get buy-in by my husband and my friends, the people around me, right?
So yes, basically I showed this sort of schedule to people who I respect, and especially my wife, and I was like, is this reasonable? Is this something we can be happy with? So because if I showed the schedule that says like I want to work 12 hours in a day, she'd be like, no way, this is not happening. So again, getting the buy-in. And then the most important thing, and the Legos were colorful white. So you can buy different color Legos, or you can use Monopoly money if you want. the main thing is to have numbers of tokens in different colors. So the thing is, as the day goes, you spend the Legos. So you stack them on top of the other. So for every 1 hour, you stack them on top of the other. So what you'll find is that when you're done with client work, with paid work, you don't have any more of these to spend. So what's to be done now? So you can go on with something else, and this will force you to read more. This will force you to do things for your business today that will be investments for tomorrow. This will force you that when all of this is done, you need to go rest. You need to go cook food. You need to go watch this show that you like so much, because this is what life's about. Like, we need to be enjoying this. Nobody wants to go like to the age of 90 and all their lives has been nothing. And if you're a creative person, there's no way you can keep being a creative person if you don't have a healthy culture diet from books, comic books, TV shows, movies, music. Like, you need to find time to be relevant. And that's it's not doing design research, but if you watch the last Avengers movie, oh, I know you're listening to heavy metal music lately, or things are sort of influencing us in various ways. So you need that, and you need to make time for that. Otherwise, you're going to be cut off and you're done.
And especially as a designer, we need that because we have to learn about new things all the time. So it's how quickly can you learn about something and dive deep and appreciate it, or find something that you appreciate. And then you find new ways to connect. And so if you're doing this all the time, other people maybe don't enjoy their job as much as we do, especially if we're owning our own business, or we're doing a side project that really takes a ton of time. I really felt like the Lego things really was key for me. Not that I've done it, but it was key for me to know about, like, okay, I have this much time a day for work. And I really feel like I do need to put more time of that just rest or reading. And I think for a lot of us, to stay relevant in our industry, we have to keep learning things. But if you're not planning for it, if you don't plan for a vacation, you will never go on a vacation, because you will not be saving money for it. You will not do whatever it takes. You won't make the reservation. You won't do those things. So it's just like, this is what you're saying. But you have to do something every day or every week. And I love that it's like a chunk of time. However much you and your family have decided is good for you to work, then that's what you can do. And then there needs to be this other stuff. This other stuff adds to who we are as designers. It helps us in our work. And it does.
Is absolutely true. Yes.
But what I thought was, like, you were like, Diane, when you've done the 8 hours of work or 10 hours of work or 12 hours of work in your day, then you've gone through all the blue Legos. You have to go to the purple Lego or the red Lego. You have to go. There is no more blue Legos.
I think as my business grows and I myself grows, and I know this might be overkill for some people. So if people are not productivity beasts, you could do a week, like all the blocks of a week. So your time is more balanced, and you can say, I'll work for 2 days straight and then play for 4 days. And that's absolutely fine as well. So you can chunk have a pool of weekly Legos for that. But I find that even now, like I have different times where, especially like I start my day with reading and writing before I do anything else. And I prefer to write before I read, because writing is the hardest thing for me. So, and it's the one that will be the least likely to carry on more, because if I'm reading, I'm really into the book, I'll just stay there. Or if I'm designing and I'm in the zone, I'll just stay there. So the cool thing about using Google Calendar for this is that so I've blocked every hour. So every hour I get a notification of what I'm supposed to be doing this hour. So if I'm cheating in any way on this, regimen, like I'll get a notification that, you're supposed to be researching design magazines or blogs or whatever. So like, but understanding that these are things that we do, like we have this, you have this weekly show, and on our group we have like scheduled calls and stuff like that. So sometimes we tend to dismiss these things as one-offs, but they're not. So just making sure that everything is in its place, and every couple of weeks you can go and revisit and say, was I happy this week that this happened? Wasn't I? Like, why wasn't I happy? Oh, that means I'm too much. When we came here in the UK, we sort of budgeted our money because our savings that we brought from Greece was not nearly enough for anything. So we under budgeted the amount of money that we would spend on going out. So after a couple of weeks that we were sort of very restrained, we're like, this is not feasible, this is not real, we should double it. And we did. And we sort of felt okay with it, because there was something that we found that made us miserable. So there's no need to be ultra regimented and so Spartan to say, oh, I'm not going to play, I'm going to, like, this is unfeasible. If it makes you miserable, change it, but just be aware that this is something you're sacrificing, so something else will have to go in its place. That's
so when you, the first thing you would tell people to do is, one, take how many weeks and kind of see what, and really track your time, because you have to analyze what you're doing. Just like before you moved, you thought it would be this much money, but you really didn't know. You had to come back, loop around, and say, nope, this is how much it's going to cost to live here, to live the way we want to live. So how many weeks do you think would be good for most people?
For time management, I think most people I've recommended this to struggle on the first week. So if you track the first week, you're already in a great path. So what I would suggest, and what I usually suggest, is every month you take 1 hour to plan the next month, to make the adjustments. So how am I doing this in Google Calendar? What I will do is I'll set every piece of that, I'll set it as recurring.
Okay.
So every piece of work I'm doing is weekly. So I'd say like client work, project A, 1 hour. And
so you do break it out to each client. So if you're working on a website,
I won't name the client. I'm just saying, so client work
is just general client work.
Right. General client work that I know that I will have at all times. So if I find next week that something's clashing, then I will delete that specific instance and I'll put something else in its place, and I'll move things around, because otherwise I won't be like, this helps me pre-plan all my year in advance. I say, this thing happens every week, and I will I'll rather manually change it every week if it clashes, or decide that this is not happening every week, rather than have an allocated time. So if you ask me what I'm doing on Wednesday, December 17th, 2028, I know. It might change, but I know now that there's a starting plan.
So then do you do it hour by hour, or are you doing blocks, like a block of 4 hours?
No, I do hour by hour because it's easier to move stuff around. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. You go.
No, like if something happens, so let's say I'm planning client work, and I'm working on the client work, and somebody calls, there's a lead, they want to work together, and I spend an hour on the phone. So what I'll do is I'll move the revenue tomorrow that I have back on that time, or from tomorrow if need be, because I've spent my thing for the day, and I'll move things around until the sums are the same.
Mm.
Sounds crazy, sounds too much, but it's actually the thing that's helped me. So this helps anticipate the sort of unexpected things.
So that is one of the huge things for us, right? We have an emergency or whatever. Right. Okay, well, that emergency, you still only have a certain amount of time in the day, and you do close it down. So if you're going to work late one night, that means you get to sleep in, or you get to play the next day, and you can't scrimp on some of those things. It's like
precisely
taking a shower. You still take a shower, hopefully every day, or brush your teeth, or whatever it is. So I want to get into this a little bit. We have just a little bit time left. So for you, working for yourself, and for a lot of us who either have a side project or we're working from home, or I know Kent Odenhall, he's working from home, but he's working remotely. So what's the hardest part about working for yourself and managing emergencies or managing time with clients? Or like, what if you get in a role on one client?
On client work, you mean? Get in a role?
Like you're doing a website and it's just so you're loving it, and you.
I think that I don't like. I find that going in and out of the zone now is more easy, just because I've learned to control the start, the sort of conditions that I have, my environmental conditions. Like I know I should be doing client work, not right now. I'm working on that, and this is going to be that's my task for the day. And because I know I have something else lined up, and it's going to be something different, like I sort of enjoy jumping around. Like I'm not that hard to focus. But by all means, like if people like working in chunks more, then just go straight. I think there's no way for me to work more than 8 hours on a single project. There's no physical way I can do it.
But you've also found that this is productive for you. So this is not like this living like this and working like this has made you more productive, more creative, because you're feeding your creative beast inside, but you're also giving yourself time for your business to grow, for you to grow, and you've adjusted and changed of what you like because you're able to dig in and do research. So it's been very beneficial for you.
Yes, it's sort of, so it reduces stress so much. And I know that, planning sounds stressful, but it's not. Basically, if I gave you $2,000 and told you, like, this is, go spend this on clothes or food or, entertainment, whatever, and you knew that everything that you wanted to do was budgeted for, you'd spend it much more easily than if you didn't know if you're getting in debt, if you need this for something else, if everything, or there's going to be a hidden thing. So what happens is I'm happy jumping between things because I don't feel guilty, because I've already pre-assigned my hours. So I know that this is not going to bite me in the bum afterwards. I try to keep the vulgarities
yeah, you did. Yeah,
at the minimum as well. So if you know what you're doing, so jumping around is not a problem, because in the end it all comes back to sort of the zero-sum thing.
So is jumping around from client to client hard for you? What do you struggle with then?
I struggle with the main struggle that I have, and you've helped me a lot in this, but I'm still trying to figure it for my own, is when do you know that something is going to have an effect? That's not part of my intention. Sometimes it's really hard to see, this sort of. So when you're doing something like that works for everybody else and isn't working for you, and you're honestly and very deeply putting the effort and time, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And this is what I'm struggling with. Like sometimes I don't get why the results are not there at all times, but I know, and this is a great thing about being very disciplined, is I know it's not for lack of trying.
Hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes it's just timing, and you have to have faith that that will happen, and that things will come to pass at the right time. And I think that sometimes it makes for a great story, right? But it sure is a better story on the other side of the story.
Right.
But when you're living it, when you're in the desert, it can be really difficult. But I think
Right.
that there are some things are really important just about being consistent. And I think for me, that's what this did for me, is helped me to see how I was using my time. And then you also gave me accountable. You looked at it in a loving way and said, Diane, where is your fun? Where's your time for you and your husband to do something? Or are you getting enough sleep? Or when are you learning? And I feel like having that of somebody, so I feel like they can do this alone, but having the accountability is really helpful. And I never felt judged by you, but I felt like you were really trying to help me be healthier and more creative. And I felt like you were on my team for this. And I feel like people need somebody else that wants the best for them. And I think that that's what you did for me. I think that's an important part of this, because
I wouldn't. Sorry.
I couldn't really just do this alone. I think I needed to have you. I needed to have somebody that I was coming to, and you were going to help me look at this and look at it from another perspective. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I want to say, like, this is why I told you like how bad it was for me in the beginning. I cannot judge people for not knowing how to handle this. I really cannot judge them. I think there are tricks. I think I've just seen myself stumble upon myself so hard. So it's really hard for me to judge. I know it's like I've been very tempted to be chaotic, and I lived that lifestyle for quite a while. It's just not working for me anymore. So I want to extend this help as much as possible to others, because I've just failed so miserably, so others can expediently learn from my experience.
Right. All right. So there are some things that I want to tell people about that they can use you for as well. So you are open to doing, I don't know what you call it, but consulting and helping people, because sometimes we're too deep in our own life
Right.
to kind of see. So I think you asked me kind of what my goals were for my business, for my life, and you kind of have that as a background of where we're going right in the future. So I just want to make sure people know that they can contact you by going to your website, lazdesign.co.uk. And that's probably the best way for them to get in touch with you. Is that right?
Yes. And my website, www.lazdesign.co.uk. It's the same.
Okay, perfect.
Instagram on. Yeah.
Yep, I have both on there. Yep, it's in the chat, and it'll also be below. So when people are maybe find somebody accountable, or you can hire Dimi. This was something we met like once every 3 weeks or once a month.
Right.
Maybe in the beginning we went once every 2 weeks, or after the first time, so that I knew I was on track.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you're building your weeks a month in advance, or you're building it's a continuous. I don't know if people are using Google Calendar like that. I know I do, but I don't do it exactly the way you're saying. I think I'm going to implement that for sure. But I also think one of the things that we don't do is market for ourselves. That business tomorrow, right? Business, doing things that for your business tomorrow, that's where we fall short. So when we're super, super busy, and I've told the story about Jason Karn before, he amazingly talented designer, letterer, artist, and he was super busy doing really big projects for big companies, but he didn't have time to market himself, and he couldn't do side projects because he didn't have time, and he couldn't share anything that he was working on because he was under non-disclosure agreements. So that's why side projects are really important. Those side projects are things that you can do and you can share, but you have to make time for them. And sometimes if we're just living at work, then our creativity kind of suffers, right? Because when we are ready to change a job, or we're ready to move on or take on a new responsibility, we don't have everything ready. So that marketing for yourself is something that's really important that you do, but it's also just as like learning. So are those two different blocks, or are those the same block of time for you?
So learning is in a different. So learning is exploration, and when I'm marketing myself, it's revenue tomorrow.
Okay. I love that, revenue tomorrow.
So it might not be marketing. So I've done free projects for certain verticals that I want to work with, or sometimes just anything that might, or even sort of value exchange projects that would go under revenue tomorrow, because it's not bringing food to the table.
Well, I also love that you're not doing so many of those, so that you have those blocked out, that if those are done, then you can't do anymore. I always thought, oh, I'm going to do one pro bono project a quarter, and it doesn't end up working. So I think your way ends up working out better, whether that is a side project where you're doing something on your own, whether that's a pro bono project or something like that. I also think just networking or getting in groups and being active. Again, consistency is really important in this, but consistency is really important for people to see that you're producing stuff on a regular basis. That's good stuff.
Well, this is 2 hours every day, and that's a lot. Like it adds up. Certainly there's a compound effect there. So I never thought that I would need to do more than this. This adds up to a whole working day. Should it be more? I don't know. I don't think so.
All right. So then these are the last three questions. How do you recharge, and what inspires you?
Okay. So I recharge. I love tabletop games, board games, and role-playing games. I'm a big fan of both. I usually I'm really hard to I try to play video games as well, but it's becoming harder and harder right now because of time, because it's sort of a tertiary thing in my entertainment, so it's not so valuable. But yeah, board games and tabletop role-playing games, I love these. Probably reading or playing something every now and then.
All right.
That's my big recharge.
Okay, I love that. What's your favorite board game? Just for kicks.
One that I love is called Celts, and it's played with pebbles. It's a neat Euro game, and there's this Ticket to Ride, which is also very exciting.
Those sound cool. I've never heard of those. I'll have to look
there's
them
this
up.
whole genre called Euro games that are really popular here in Europe, and it's a booming industry actually.
We'll have to check it out. Us here in America don't even know about that side of the pond. Okay, I love that. I love learning new things. All right, so Demi, what advice would you give that younger self? I mean, would your younger self that was the crazy getting up at 11 or 3 or whatever, would you even be friends with you now?
Well, I would. Again, I don't judge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would like me. Like, I would be too much of a square for him. The cool, hip, young Dimi. I would suggest. So there's a time where the internet sort of happened, and I stopped reading. I was reading a lot as a kid, and I sort of stopped reading when the internet came to our lives. So this year I'm back into reading, and this is what I give myself advice: never stop reading. I've read 34 books this year. I'm going to reach 40 by the end of the year, and last year I read 1. So
wow. And these are one of them you told me to read, and it was thick. It was a thick book. It was a lot of hours. It was like 15 hours in Audible.
Well, yeah, I do. Like, I read every day now, multiple books usually. So I read one or two books. Not one whole book in a single take, but I read 1, 2 books a day. So this is something cool I'm doing. I've deleted all the social media from my phone. So if I'm bored in a queue or somewhere on the train or the tube, I'd I'd read a book, and I have multiple books. So if I'm bored of that book I'm reading, I'll just switch the book. So there you go.
That's great. All right. So what's next? How could people um, learn more, or what are you going to do for us next?
So I'm going through a massive rebrand as well, and this is going, like, my whole business is going to change. I'm still going to be doing identities and logos, but I found a research opportunity. I would say, like, I found a really cool thing to research called semiotics, which is the study of signs and symbols and what things mean. And I think there's some much value for graphics designers to understand, um, why we're using different things, and how we interpret certain visual pieces. Have started putting out content both on my Instagram account and my LinkedIn about this. And yeah, this mistake here. There you go. Sorry about that technical difficulty. But yeah, this is going to be the focus of my new business in 2020.
That's awesome. I lost connection to my mouse, so I can't do anything.
Okay.
I have to get my other mouse from over there. Hang on just a second.
It's all right. Take your time.
It's another reason I
This
really
is a live
don't
show,
love
people. This is a
Apple
live show.
mice.
Please
Hang on.
forgive Diane. She's not hearing her mic.
I know I have battery in it, but now at least I have a mouse. Hopefully now I just have to put my earbuds back in the right ears.
Do you have one of these Apple mice that are?
I hate this mouse.
Yeah.
I hate this mouse.
I'm a Windows user.
I know we're not going to talk about that because I still want to be friends with you.
Well, there you go. How's your mouse working now?
It's working. It's a Logitech, right? It's just a $12 Logitech. I'm just playing with you, Dimi. I know you are a PC user. All right.
Fair enough.
We'll cut that other part out. Anyway, so if you guys want to get in touch with Dimi, you can easily do that by going to his website at lazdesign.co.uk. And he really helped me. He helped me look at it from a new perspective, and I hope maybe some of this has helped you. I think knowing his story of being so disorganized or so not, I don't know, it was very different. Your life, I think, was before. And then I think putting things in blocks and in chunks and doing it each hour of each day and then just having it repeat, especially for somebody like me, one of the things that I struggle with is that my life changes every quarter, every semester. I have different things that are going on. So I do those planning scheduled out. But for me, planning in time and maybe color coding, and I don't know if you color code it as well in your Google Calendar. Do you?
I do.
I think it helps us to be able to work better like that for sure. But Dimi, you're one of my favorite people. I love learning from you. I am glad that we read some of the same books, or you tell me books to read, because I think we help each other. But I just want to make sure people know to go to your Instagram as well, because you are working on these signs and symbols, and has really fueled you in a different way, I think, than what you've done in the past. So I think this is really fun. I just want to share this one specifically. I love the textures. I love how you're bringing, it's a carousel, but it's done differently. And I think I really love the way you're doing it. So good job.
Thank you, Dan. This has been, like, as a guest on this show, that so many people I have been inspired and admired have been in my position. I'm very, very grateful for the invitation. I always enjoy the time spent together as well. I've told you for anyone who's listening, there's a 25% discount on the consulting I do for productivity with the code design recharge. Single word as a coupon code in my eShop. So
And we can get to that shop just by going to Laz
yes,
Code.
my website, just shop, and that's where it is. I can actually give you, design recharge. I can give you
I'm going to get it.
Actually. Okay,
yep.
You're amazing.
I'm getting it. And you're 6 foot tall and some change.
Yes, that's apparently what the consensus is. I could be, I don't know. It's a European thing. 183. And thank you so much. Like, this has been so valuable. I have some time if people want to ask any questions, or
absolutely. So if people
I don't want to keep you.
No, I'd have to go in like 10 minutes. Have to go to another thing. But if we go to shop and then we go to, and you have a lot of things, like there are the market audit books, also really neat, but the productivity consultation is 60-minute, and then you're giving us a discount. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to put it in the chat. So it'll be right there.
Wicked.
Yay. Anyway, it really helped me. And I just thought it was a different way to look at things. And I did get Legos. I just need to put them together.
For me, Legos was it was a new thing. I started with Monopoly money, because there's this idea that you're spending a specific currency every time and you're not getting back like normal currency. So, but Legos sort of work because you can stack them and you can see a visual representation of your day as it goes, and this is also quite exciting. If you're very much of a freak and you track everything like I do, you can take pictures of the stack every day and just compare your days in different ways. Just a suggestion. So
I love that.
If anyone has any questions, I'm very happy to answer. I haven't checked the chat for a while.
I have been. So a lot of people love the Lego idea and said you could use that with kids too. Ethan said it helped him a lot. Maria was impressed by your book thing. I think this is what I love about Dimi. It goes from 1 book last year to 40 this year. So, and these aren't tiny little books that are 3 pages long, right? Some of these are really long books. But does the books vary in what you're reading? Do you read other things that are culturally, or are they all business books or design books? Or
I can share my screen.
Great. And we have one question. Melvin says, can you share the other main productivity tool that you use daily apart from what you discussed today?
Okay, this is really a whole new kind of worms, Melvin, but I use this. This is called the bullet journal. It's not mine, so it's basically a technique to write down your tasks. You do it by hand. There's a way to code it but the main idea, and what people don't get with these digital task apps, is that you have to physically write it every day. So I start the day with writing. And this way, if you sort of skip something that you should be doing, like you forgot to pay the gas bill for 4 days in a row, like the 5th time you write it, you're like, what am I doing here? And you have sort of time to meditate on what's to be done. And this primes you because you already know what's important for today. So you start the day with this. So I'm very much, I hope I answered your question, Melvin. So Diane, I'll share my screen with what is a bit crazy, but please bear with me. It's my library system.
And you use Notion, right, to take notes in books?
Yes. So this is, can you see that?
Yes, we can see it. So library system is the type of books that you're reading, right?
Right. So
okay.
I have a master list of books that I want to read at some point, and there are many more that are not yet here. So as this carries on. So the colors are how deep I am into these. So let's say if I have a book on drawing, but I haven't read any, so it's red. And if I've read some books on typography, it's going to go orange and progressively yellow, green, sometimes blue is, the thing that I've been more involved.
You
This
have to
year.
manually make them those colors, right? It doesn't happen.
Yes, I do have to do it manually, but just because it's, once every book, it's like, takes me several months to do the book. So it's actually a pleasure to go back in, strike this through, and carry on. So I have different, I have this way to just sort of sort everything. And I know it sounds complicated, and probably is, and you don't need to do that unless you're a freak like I am.
But you also take notes in Notion on the books too, so you're
Yes.
very active learning.
Every time I'm reading, I'm actively taking. I can show you. So that's not there. It's my improvement, because there's a separate thing for that as well. Let's say branding. Like this story brand is really good, so I marked it complete because I'm done. And this is pretty much my notes on the book. So as I'm reading, I'm just writing. This is not copy paste. I'm freeform writing, because that's the way I'm sure I understand everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is how I do it. I know it's a lot of work, but you'll thank yourself in the future for doing this. This is the whole tying your shoelaces the proper way sort of thing.
Well, and then it also gives you something to go back to and to refresh instead of having to find. And Notion is free, and it's
I'm sharing all these notes with my friends. Like, so every time someone mentions a book I've read, I'm like, oh, here's my notes for that. I know I cannot publish it because it's not my original work, but if someone's reading the book, it's really cool. So this is content waiting to be shared, basically. Thank you, Melvin, for being with us.
For sure. All right, well, Dimi, I'm going to let you go, but I want to thank you guys for coming today, and I hope that it helped. It has helped me a ton. Next week is our last official Design Recharge. I will be doing one more on the Thanksgiving Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I know it doesn't mean anything to you, Dimi, but we have Thanksgiving. But anyway, I don't think y'all have a thing in a couple weeks, right? You don't have a holiday?
No, we like people do Black Friday here, but it's just it's sort of after
our Thanksgiving.
Shock.
Yeah. So we are going to be talking about spending and the holidays, and how we can really plan for next year by making connections and starting conversations and communications and reaching out. And we have Dustin Lee from Retro Supply on, and that's what he's going to be talking about, because he's learned a lot. And November's always usually a really good month, and you think, oh, people are buying things for other people, but there's a mindset thing. So really, maybe you have a different mindset. We usually think it's just so dead, right? July it's dead, and then December it's dead. But maybe you can do revenue tomorrow things in December and in the end of November, which really make a difference for your beginning of your year in January. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week with Dustin Lee with Retro Supply. So I hope you guys will join us back. Regular time. Dimi, thank you. I know it's super late, right?
Thank you, Diane. No, it's
8:30?
Yeah.
8:45?
Yeah. It's all right. Thank you so much, Diane. It's an absolute honor. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank y'all for sure. And I'll see you next week.